Today I'm going to show you guys how to replace the hydrostatic drive belt on the MT100. So buckle your seat belt and let's get started. We're going to start by removing the shield over the muffler. See this little bolt right here? It's a 9/16. Alright, so you're just going to hold it like that with the wrench and loosen it with a tool on the outside. That's good. Alright. When you guys are looking at the Bobcat, when you're trying to get to these bolts, you can't use any power tool to get to these two unless you've raised up that thing a little bit. We're going to go ahead and raise this up and install the safety bar so we can properly work on this thing without risk to ourselves. So then all this thing does is just lift up. So you can see we didn't have to take these bolts out right here. There's no need. Okay. Go ahead and remove the cover over this. So there's your bolt right there. That's what needs to get loosened. Just so you guys understand the gravity of the situation, if you drop your socket down in that hole, you cannot find anything from up top here. You'll have to go through back here to try to find your lost socket or your hardware. So try to be careful and not drop anything. So now you can see it moves freely. So now you need to remove these two bolts on the sides of the gear pump. What they're trying to tell me in the instructions to remove, you can't get to. So we're going to take this battery out. There's a bolt right here. You'll remove that bolt. And then we need to remove these two battery connections. And once this little block comes out, the battery should come out. I have a couple extra little wires in here set up for some different stuff, lights and whatnot. They get in my way. But get that out of there and the job is a lot easier. There's a bolt right there. It's an Allen bolt, okay? And there's one on the left side. You can see there's no room to get in there, so looks like we got to get in from underneath, or we got to remove the hydraulic reservoir.
No, then you just put it on.
I just took the bolt all the way out.
That's fine.
I don't know about that. Check the instructions. Loosen the two bolts. I'm just gonna pretend it never came out. Okay.
Dude, who put this reservoir here?
I know, dude. Alright guys, you're gonna have to take out the reservoir bolts. There's a strap, so you can see there's the one on the side. And then there's, it's kind of hard to see it, but hopefully you can see it here behind this hose. You take that out. Here we go. This bracket is very hard to get out. You kind of have to move the reservoir around to get the bracket out of where it's at. It's wedged in right there between the hose and the reservoir. At this point I had to disconnect the supply hose to where it goes to the elbow at the bottom of the reservoir. It's just not possible to move it because that supply hose goes straight to the pump and there's no movement. So we need a little extra space. So just after I disconnected that, I just put a paper towel in there and it's not leaking. So that's good. But you can't get this out without disconnecting this hose from the back, and then there's another hose. So we're just going to maneuver around it now. So my assistant is holding the light for me from the bottom, and I reached in from the top and I had access to get that Allen bolt out from there with a short extension. This is pretty tough to get to, but once you move that reservoir forward or backward actually towards the rear of the vehicle, it's a lot easier to get in there. You just only can do it with one hand, so it's a little bit tricky. It requires a little strength. I don't know why just loosening those would be sufficient. What does that allow me to do? You have to remove the pump. We have to take those bolts out.
I think it's out.
Try not to lose it.
Alright, sweet.
We just jiggled this tank forwards, and from here we were able to come down from the top. So I was able to stick my hand in from up here, just like this, and I had it was a 6-inch extension with a 5/16 Allen on it. That lower pulley right there in the middle there's a spline that goes from the hydraulic pump straight into that pulley. That's the pump right there, see? It's moving. So we took the bolts out because they said loosen the bolts, but the bolts are super short. Just loosening them didn't give you the access to get that spline out. I'm just gonna leave my little tampon in this hole right here, and that'll hold back most of the fluid. Here's the 2 bolts right here. See, they're not very long. Here's the part. It's a 2-in-1 belt. It's very hard to get the belt through that little gap down below at the bottom pulley. I'll try to show you as best I can in just a minute, but this was a pretty tough process, so enjoy that. Take a look. I don't know if you can tell, just to basically the direction I'm pointing, you have to go past that pulley. And there's a very small space, so your belt has to be flipped on its side like that. And then I had to use this long flathead, but if you don't have one of these, a long tool that's very skinny like this, I really don't know what you're gonna do. I also had to actually pull the pump all the way out because that spline was getting in the way. So you can see I've displaced this thing a lot. In there, you can see the spline, so there's room. And if you move the pump like I did, then you can get access to put your hand through there in that hole. Basically, you can kind of jam it. So I used a different tool from back here and push the belt the rest of the way. It's kind of hard to get the reservoir lined back up to the holes, but you just have to work it and be careful. Pull our tampon out. There.
Dude, imagine you forgot to pull it out.
Oh, that would suck, dude. Ah! There. I'll just fast forward through this, but obviously the battery has to get reinstalled. There. So that corner right there should be at 25 degrees, but I could just go to 30 if I want. But now I just have to hold this here. This pedestal component right here, this is the tensioner. Obviously it's got a spring inside it, but if you turn this, it's got a spring that loads that arm. So you're just loading the spring between this and this by adding tension to it. And that's why it pivots anyway. And once you pivot it to the position that you want, you tighten that back bolt, and then this thing in theory shouldn't turn. The tension on this belt is on the 500-hour maintenance, and we're at 1400 right now. We did adjust this twice previously. All right, now it's time to put the door on. These are a genius design. You can't actually open it. See, it's got the mechanism to allow you to open it, but there's bolts in the way. All right, so before we destroy a new drive belt, let's just crank the engine quick and see it turn. So we did check these pulleys to verify that they weren't seized up, by the way. I forgot to mention that before. We're just gonna go ahead and start it and run it now for a second. I just have to get this little strut out of the way, and then we'll drive it back and forth and make sure that everything seems to work and sound like it's supposed to. Make sure that this tag here is readable, because if you put it in the other way, it won't fit, okay? So let me show you how to install this here. So you want to line up to these 2 bolts. Obviously they have to be pushed in a little, right? So we just wiggle it in like that, right? And then lift it, and it goes right on like that, okay?
Beautiful.
I'm going to raise this so I can get access to those bolts. After that, we just had to top off the hydraulic fluid, and we were on our way. It was all fixed up and ready to go.